Okay, managing the media. So we're going to work in three groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1 table, 2 table, 3 tables. Within those tables, I'm giving you a little warning, within those tables you'll identify one media spokesperson who will speak about their crisis event as though it has either just occurred or is about to occur. So this is a real life run through of your crisis situation. So you might want to start now thinking how you get out of being the person who does the media spokesperson role. We always say the first 24 hours of media are the most important. You need to make sure that you're in control of your message in the first 24 hours. Reinforcing that point that if the person who's doing everything is also doing the media, it's unlikely that they're going to feel prepared and ready to get exactly the right message at exactly the right time. You never know when the media is going to call. But I will tell you a story that was up there. It was a helicopter crash. It is at a significant location. Within 60 seconds of the blades hitting the ground, the first media had contacted the general manager to say, "We understand that there has been multiple fatalities from a helicopter crash. Can you tell us what has happened?" Why? Because the media chopper happened to be flying over at exactly that time, Murphy's Law again, and within 60 seconds the first call had been made to say, what's happened, how many fatalities, and what are you doing about it? The operations manager had just enough time to get into the general manager's office and give him 15 seconds of brief before the phone rang. Usually you would be able to say, look, I'm not in a position to answer that question right now. And what happens? The first blast goes out to say, fireball, helicopter crash, potential fatalities. But because they had an immediate response, he had a few lines to run straight off to the media about their business, about the safety of the helicopter operations, and he just heard from the ops manager that there were no fatalities, everybody was safe, and they were doing everything they could to find out what was going on, and they would provide an update in 30 minutes. That put the whole situation in a totally different light. And that's what I want you to be able to do, to be able to take that media opportunity that you get, make the most of it, and that means being prepared. So we need to make sure that the person who speaks to the media is identified in advance. They have full authority of your management. That means that if they say something in a media interview like, we will do a full refund for all those people who have been affected, that management are willing to and able to stand by that. The last thing you want to do is then make a retraction statement which won't get to everyone and will only make your organisation look as though you don't know what you're doing. You want that person to be consistent. You want them to know that they are isolated from the emotion of the crisis event, and they probably didn't witness it, hopefully, and they are able to provide a commentary without being drawn into the emotion. That if they have other roles to do, somebody is backfilling them, so they're not trying to do 3 roles at a time, and ideally they're media trained. They're the obvious ones. The ones for me that I think are really important is that you've actually created a message in advance that talks to your brand. Who are you and what do you want people to know about you? It is in many ways an advertising opportunity for your business. So what do you want people to know? That you don't know how to manage the situation, you're trying to find out information as quickly as possible, or that this has never happened in your business before, you've implemented your crisis response plan and everything is under control. I think the latter is really what you want your customers to hear from you. You want to make sure that lots of channels are getting your information. So does your website have the right information on it? Have you put it on your Facebook and on your Twitter if you use social media? Are you in a position to talk to your suppliers who can also talk to their partners to advise them of the situation, particularly about how quickly you'll be able to get back into business following the situation? That the person is able to handle media calls, both skill-wise and they have the time to. And for me, really importantly, having been involved in a number of media situations, that the person who is taking the call is as up to date on the latest information as the journalist. Because if the journalist has a piece of information that your media person doesn't have, automatically they're on the back foot and they start to feel as though they need to cover for themselves. And that's not the situation you want to be in. You don't want them to be thrown by a fact or piece of information that they weren't aware of. And that takes a bit of time. So in your kit are some templates to help document these very simple questions. So you'll find those on page 13 is, for me, the best one to work through. We call it a message mapping exercise. If we use politicians as an example, and maybe Kevin Rudd might be the best at this, As annoying as it may be, working families was a phrase we became very familiar with during his 2007 election campaign. Now what that meant is we always knew he was consistent about his message. He had a very short phrase that he used on a regular basis, and I want you to have one of those for your business to respond to a crisis situation, particularly the one you're most likely to face that has the most significant impact. So what is it about your business that you want people to know? That you're caring, that you are in control, that you have a crisis plan? What are the words that you want your media spokesperson to reiterate on as many occasions as possible to firm up your story? Of course, they're going to have to be able to answer what happened, when did it happen, who did it happen to, how did it happen, and what are you going to do about it? The last question in particular will be one that the media are very interested in. What are you going to do now? When will you get back to business? How will you deal with the people who have been affected? How will you deal with their family and their friends who have been affected? They're going to be looking to you to answer those questions as soon as possible. Now, you could do the delay and say, I'll get back to you with a press conference in an hour. If their media deadline is in half an hour, then you'll have missed your opportunity. They'll run with whatever story they can get their hands on from what you've given them and what they can gather from around. That's particularly important when it comes to briefing your staff. All staff at induction need to be informed. Your organisation has one media spokesperson, who they are, and they need to have their mobile phone number. And then at any time when they are asked to make a comment, they can be straight down the line and say, I'd love to provide you with as much information as you need, but our media spokesperson, John, has everything that you need. His mobile number is, and he'd be happy to speak to you. We don't get ourselves in the situation of saying no comment. Our staff aren't awkward or uncomfortable. They know exactly what to say. They know who they're passing the information on to, and that person can be responsible for your message. Now, because our case study had 60 seconds, I'm going to give you 5 minutes on your table to identify who your media spokesperson is, what topic you're talking about, what crisis you're dealing with, and to start to write down your answer to the 5 questions and the key messages that you want to get across. Use this information to try and guide you. Make sure you define the problem, identify the victims and the staff. Make sure you're monitoring what's going on. Give credit where credit is due. So the guys are all going together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. One media spokesperson, and coach them, guys, through the exercise of mapping out some key messages and answering those all-important questions. Your 5 minutes starts now.
So what are we going to choose?
We do have a good stock of it at a local storage facility, which is...
Page 13 will help you kind of guide your way through that.
Last night at around 3 a.m. there was a minor explosion at the Bobinson cheese factory. No one was injured, and currently it looks like we're only having about 2 weeks out from the factory going back into business.
Okay, so Sarah, what does a minor explosion in a cheese factory look like? How much damage is there?
We've got 3 buildings on site, and only one of the buildings with one piece of equipment. There's not much damage, and at this stage we're just looking into what's actually happened, so we can't actually let you know that at this stage. But once we have a better idea of how that's going after the investigation's over, we'll certainly be in contact to let people know what's happened.
Fantastic, Sarah. We've heard from some previous employees that it was as a result of lack of maintenance of the equipment. Is there any truth in that?
Certainly not. We follow strict health and safety guidelines, and that includes the maintenance of our equipment, so we're always ensuring that our employees are working in a safe environment.
Okay, so what is it that has caused this tragedy for the cheese factory?
At this stage we're still looking into that. It's an ongoing investigation. We've spoken with local authorities and they're actually looking into it at the moment, and as I said, once we've got more information on that we can get back to you, because we don't want to give you facts that are only half investigated.
So was anybody injured?
No one was injured. It was excellent that the security guard was not passing through at that stage. The security alarm was set off by a nearby building when the explosion happened, and the security guard came through and alerted authorities as soon as he came in.
So the cheese factory is a much loved attraction here. When is it going to be reopened?
We're looking at around 2 weeks. We're just going to tidy up the area and make sure that we can replace the equipment, make sure that it's all safe for both our staff and the people who love to come and visit.
Fantastic. And I'd heard that there was a school group of Melbourne schoolgirls coming up en route on bus at the moment. What will you be doing with the school group who is going to be coming through the cheese factory this afternoon?
The local school has thankfully given us one of their kitchens, and we're actually going to be taking them through a cheese making course in that local school's kitchen.
Fantastic, Sarah. Well, on behalf of the community, we wish you all the best and look forward to hearing the cheese factories up and going again. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
What happened this morning?
We've just had a very nasty accident. A Mini has gone through a gravel trap, over a fence and into the crowd. This is a very serious incident, and we're working very hard at this moment to minimise what will occur. At this point in time, we have 2 spectators that have been injured. They are not life-threatening injuries, and the vehicle itself is going into an impound to be checked over by the police.
So, John, how does an incident like this occur in a business that has an impeccable safety record?
Thank you for saying that. The reality is several 100,000 cars have gone around that corner, and this sort of incident has never ever occurred before. The particular type of car that was involved may have been part of the reason for it, and we are investigating that as well. The main thing is right now we have 3 doctors with over 40 years of experience working with those 2 people on the hill. We have 2 ambulances there, and in addition to that there are 4 paramedics.
And what's the condition of the driver?
Both of the drivers are fine and will probably be racing later in the day.
Would it be safe for that vehicle to go back on the track, or has that vehicle been impounded?
No, that particular vehicle's been impounded, but believe it or not, they have spare vehicles.
So, John, what's happening with the family? Are you bringing the family up to the hospital to be by the side of their loved ones?
One of them, they may go to hospital for a check-out. It is unlikely that either of them will be held overnight, although one of them, I believe it is possible at this point in time. Understand that this is still under investigation, and the final, diagnosis is still to be done.
Okay, so is it most likely then that it's driver error that's at fault? And is it safe to put a driver like that back onto the track this afternoon?
Look, I have never seen an incident like this in my 40-odd years of motorsport. I put it in the same category as space debris landing in that particular part of the crowd.
That's a pretty unlikely one. But so John, for people who are planning to come to the track tomorrow, you're going to be open for business?
Oh yes, that particular area will be roped off, so if that is your favourite area, I'm terribly sorry. We won't be able to allow you in there until the OH&S people and the police have finished their investigations. But other than that, it's business as usual. So
that part of the track will be closed. How long do you think it'll be closed for?
No, that part of the spectator area, not the track. And it will be closed until such time as we have finished the investigations and looked at any recommendations that may come out of those investigations.
John, for anyone who's looking for more information about the event today or about future bookings for the site, where do they contact?
Please go to our website. We are constantly updating our website as information becomes available for you.
Fantastic. Thanks for your time, John.
Most welcome.
So remember, as I said, every conversation with the media is on the record, whether you know them or not. All public engagements should be treated that way. Conscious of all your external communications, particularly in an email world, be aware that everything you write can be sent to lots of people, and as John has really clearly articulated, we're not always in control of the most popular media, whether it be Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. Those are mainstream, high-volume media channels that you'll need to be able to put the right information on. So making sure that you're on top of that is really important. And make sure that you've asked your staff to be vigilant and aware of your crisis management response and who your media spokesperson is, making sure that through their induction process they know who it is, what their phone number is, and how to deal with that situation pleasantly and quickly. In your kit are a whole bunch of templates. You've walked through 2 of those. One is the press release template, which is the who, what, where and when, and the other one is the message mapping. For me, they work really well hand in glove, because what we often do in the media situations is we go factual and we forget to tell our story. So make sure that you do both processes when you come to a media event, and think a lot about who might be in charge of your media. Just a little example, we talked before about Facebook. Many of you would have seen this before, but the Queensland Police has been held up as a leading national example of the use of social media during the flood. So this little line, I'll show you the numbers. Between May 2010 and January 2011, they had about 7,000 or 8,000 people who were liking their Facebook page. In 2 days, 150,000 people liked their Facebook page so they could access the information on that site. With the flooding, then with Anthony and Yasi, and the site has continued to grow. So while we might hope that our press release and our media statement is the one that reaches most people, it might be your Facebook page or one of your partners' Facebook pages that really gets the message out to your customer. So you need to be able to get that message out, thinking about all those channels. So in your list of responsibility, who's looking after Facebook, who's looking after your website, and who's crafting those messages, because the more articulate you are and the stronger that message is, the more likely it is to be picked up. And remember, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So what we've talked about today is then having your staff know how to assess the situation, implement your remedial response. You've started your communication both within your immediate tree, and we've now talked about managing the media. And we should now be within the first 24 hours of the event. The initial interest from media has started to die down. You've had information go down through your channel and come back through your channel. And it's now a time for you to bring your team back together after your initial meeting and say, where are we? What's the current situation? Who's where? And who is starting to take responsibility for taking our business into the recovery phase of the cycle? So your immediate pressure might be off, but this is the time to start documenting exactly what's happened. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about insurance in a few minutes, and this is the time when you really need to make sure that somebody has been keeping a relatively active event log of what has occurred. Even if it is done post, it is better to have done it on the day than to be looking at it weeks and weeks later, trying to work out what came in what order. And there's an event log template in your kit here. I'd encourage you to put that in your go pack with a pen and make sure that somebody in your team is starting to jot down some of the key things that happened in the order that they happened in. It could be the difference between a quick insurance claim and a very slow one, or if it is a legal situation, it could really take the pressure off you. You also want to make sure that you're in a position to be photographing and videoing as much as you can, capturing as much evidence of the event as humanly possible. So the evaluation time is a chance for you to bring your core back together, your 5 people, and find out what's happening out on the ground, how everyone's going, what needs to be done next, getting ready for the next day, whether that be clean-up day or support day or starting to recover day, and that'll depend on the size of the event. So your event log template is there. And then within the first 36 hours, your core management team need to do a re-evaluation of where you stand. Is our business going to continue as it was? Are we asking for it to continue as it was? Or is this an opportunity for us to look at our business in a different way? Are we going to expand? Are we going to move into a diversified model? Are we moving into different markets? Are we going to rebuild that property just as it was? Or are we going to move into a different part of the business? So your team needs to start to think about this, and that's where crisis management and business management come together. At all points today, we've talked about the marriage between your business plan and your crisis plan, and this is where they really come together. You need to understand what part of your business you're going to run through with and how you start to recover. I want you just to write down the 3 things that your business needs to operate. What is it that you need? And if one of those was taken away, how would you go about getting it back quickly and efficiently? So on the plan, there's a couple of spaces. There's a whole page on page 23 to write down critical business activities. So in Colleen's position, yes, you need a boat. Yes, you need a skipper. And we also need to be able to get people on or off the vessel. Or we need fuel, or we need telecommunications. There's lots of things that you need. Simply identify 3 for me, 1 in each row. And then for one of those, work through the process of, so how do I keep it if I've lost it? How do I get it back? What preventative actions can I take? Who's going to be responsible for those? And what resources am I going to need to get them up and going again? So I talked earlier about the Miramar situation. That wasn't a cost expense. That was just a matter of making some phone calls and working through the process of an alternative. So identify 3 things that your business needs: telephone, staff, cash, and how you'll go about getting them if through the crisis event that you've been planning for, those aren't available to you. Look, we've come to the end of the formal part of the program. As I said from the outset, our contact details are there. Stay in touch with us. Do pass this knowledge on to other people. Stay in touch with each other. And, as I said, try and be an ambassador for the idea of good risk management within the sector that you work in. So work with the other people in the peninsula, work with other people in your sector to try and help them to make sure that they've done a little bit of thinking about this, because it will have benefits for your business in the long term. What we've covered off on today then is understanding your business, making sure that you've done your risk assessment, you've got your immediate emergency plan together, the Ghostbuster, who am I going to call? We're now in a situation that you've got a core responsibilities of a response team, and you're going to send out to them the roles that you expect them to play in a crisis situation. Not everyone will jump at the opportunity, as we've talked about, so make sure that you have that discussion with them, be sure they're comfortable with it, and if they're not, then you give those responsibilities to somebody else who can do them for you. In the event of the emergency response, making sure that you have the right first aid practices, you have your go pack in place, and that you can get everyone to safety before you start talking about dealing with the media. Identify your media spokesperson, let them know that your media spokesperson, and make sure that they've had some level of training. Potentially Callie could provide some media training for anyone who was a little short on experience, as long as they run a cheese factory. You've got an opportunity then to keep going with your recovery plan. It doesn't need to be war and peace, but what it needs to do is articulate what are you going to do to get your business back up to business as usual as quickly as possible. There's no use documenting all the things you already know unless the other people in your business don't know that. I want you to spend the time digging in with your team about the things you're not sure that you know how to handle and how you're going to go about handling those to shorten that response and recovery time. Talk to your broker. Please talk to your broker or your insurer and have a think about where your cash flow is coming from. And just like any crisis situation, it is all about practice, practice, practice. So we've covered off on lots of things today. There's a little checklist here of things that you need to do next. So look, I thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure working with each and every one of you. Stay in touch with us. My details are here. Love to hear from you again. And do pass the knowledge on to anyone else who's out there. So thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure working with you, and we'll see you soon.